Hi, this will be a video of me responding to ZestyJesus' recent 4-hour video, and I'll give a quick introduction of myself. My alias is Obriak. I'm an old competitive TF2 player. I started playing around 2012 with my first competitive game, and my last competitive game was around 5 years ago. So I have some competitive experience, but I've also quit some time ago. And here is my TF2 history. This is the European TF2 League. As you can see, I've played a bunch of games. And this is my avatar. This will be me when quick play gets added back into the game. Okay, so now that you sort of know who you're watching, I want to first of all say that Zesty's video was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was covering topics very nicely. The research was done very well. The editing was done very well. Yeah, it was a bit long, 4 hours is long, but I think with the amount of stuff that you have to cover, it's gonna be long anyway. So, if it was gonna be 4 hours, it may have been 3 hours, because if you need to talk about the whole history, about all the updates, very carefully, step to step. And I know why he's done that, because if you don't cover it as carefully as he did, people are gonna like nitpick and find the tiniest stuff to say, oh, but actually, no. So I think he's done well to do that. I also really like the ending, Propane Nightmares was like, oh, man, it was like a little time machine. It just sent me back to the good old Airshot videos. Yeah, so really well done. So why am I making this video? Well, I'm of course a competitive player. I started playing pretty early on in 2010, so I've had quite some history. I've seen the game go through a bunch of stages, as well as the competitive scene. So for people who are not so in touch with the competitive scene, I could maybe clear some things up. Why matchmaking, why competitive? Some people can't really grasp that if you haven't played competitive. And at the same time, I just want to get people talking. I don't want to vilify anyone. I don't want to shit on one community. I'm not picking a side here. I'm in that regard fairly neutral, but I still have the point of view from a casual player as well as a competitive player. So I could just clear some things up there. So I think it's good to know how I even got into competitive. I played a lot of hours on 2Fort Egypt, which was my go-to community server. And that was just 2Fort in Egyptian style, where people didn't capture the flag and just played DM. And at some point, people got pretty good at that. Like, there were people with good DM, and they figured out that TF2 Lobby was a thing. TF2 Lobby was, at that time, the go-to third-party website just to play in a competitive format. And I didn't really know why you would do that. Why would you do that if you could just play pubs and DM, and if you're good, you can just destroy people there? What's the incentive? Well, I already heard Star talk about Highlander in his videos around that time. And I was like, what the hell is Highlander? I didn't know what he was talking about in his competitive videos. But then I found the TF2 top 10 plays of August 2011. And it started with that yow. And that video really blew my mind, because that's when I saw how good people could get at TF2 and how cool the frags looked if they were good frags. And then, of course, you had Eckstein doing the commentary over it. It was just really well made, and it got me really hooked. And I thought, holy shit, could that be me if I get good at the game? Could I be in a top 10 video? So that's when I got that impulse. I was like, ooh, competitive. Hey, it might be interesting. So I started playing those lobbies a bunch. At first I sucked. I probably got shit talked like crazy. I didn't know what class I was good at. I was still figuring things out. But despite that struggle at the start, I really enjoyed it. And I thought there was something. It was cool to win. It was cool. I got excited about winning, and before I didn't really care. You know, on Team Fort Egypt we just killed each other, and that's it. And in lobbies I felt like, oh, if we win, that actually feels quite good. Even though there was no elo, there was nothing. It just felt good to win. And then I realized there are entire leagues where this is how the game is played. So in 2012, I first illegally played a Highlander match. I never signed up for UGC. I just played the games, and they never even knew that I existed. It was great fun. And then I got into sixes, and I thought, okay, sixes I think is the way to go. And in 2012 and 2013, it was still pretty, you know, I wasn't invested that much. I maybe played one season in 2012 and then 2 or 3 in 2013. And it got a bit more as the years went on. But yeah, it was obvious that I liked it. However, I never abandoned the whole community server or quick play system. I used it a lot still. I think most of my hours went in there still. Despite being in a team, you know. Also, just to get a picture of how it goes in the team, if you're part of a team, you have to scrim or PCW. And PCW is, I think that's for practice clan wars. It's just you practice for an official game with your team. And if you had a die-hard team, you would practice like 3-4 evenings a week. Now, I don't think I've ever been on a team like that, but we would practice maybe 2-3 times. So your evenings would be spent on that, just to get an idea. And that means I had less time for casual, but even on a team, I think most of my time was spent in casual, in quick play. Sorry, I keep saying casual, I just mean quick play, the pub system at the time. And it was so easy. It was so easy just to find good servers. For example, one thing I miss the most is the simple map rotations of the pubs, where if you would start in Hightower, you can either vote to extend it, or it would automatically change to Pipeline. And after Pipeline came Nightfall, and after Nightfall came Hightower again. That was just a 3-map cycle of payload race, and you had that for every game mode. And that's also how I got to know unfamiliar maps, because I would start on a familiar map like Badwater, and then after that it would change to Barn Blitz, which is a map I had never played, but I learned to play it and got familiar with it and like it or dislike it. You know, of course we have maps we like and we dislike, but I just at least got to know them or got to try them. It was that simple. I didn't need to look for them. I didn't need to tick them in the casual system. The game just dragged you into them and said, okay, try this. Sure. And at some point you just get to know all the maps. It was just that simple. So what my point here is that even though I was active in the competitive scene, I still spend a lot of my time playing pubs. And it was very inviting. I didn't see much of a gap between the two personally. Like, it was way different, but I could switch very easily between the two. It was just both very enjoyable to me. I could see why people only would go for pubs. I could see why some people only decided to play competitive. But for me, and I think a lot of people at the time that were playing competitive, they also liked playing pubs. So as I slowly climbed the TF2 ladder, I found out that LANs were taking place each year, the I series, the Insomnia series, and I just missed out on I-46, but I heard there was a lot of hype around I-49, and I was not going to go to a LAN, no way. But from what I saw and from what I heard from people that did go, it was one of the best competitive TF2 experiences that ever existed. There's also this really nice video called the I-49 Fragmentary by Cube, and I think Bones also made it. And I think that's a really good look inside the competitive scene, especially around a LAN. You know, what's the vibe? what do people like about this part of the game. So if you're unfamiliar with competitive TF2, I would suggest watch that video. It's an hour long, you know, it's also quite long, but it will help you understand some things that I'm trying to explain. You know, where does the hype come from? Why go to such a small LAN? You know, there's not even money to be won, but still people go there. So it will help you understand, probably. Now, I bring up this LAN particularly because there was such an overwhelmingly positive response from the competitive scene about this LAN that it may have sparked the idea to poke Valve into quote-unquote improving the competitive scene. You know, people were so excited and so overwhelmed by it. They thought, more people need to play this, more people need to see this, more people need to come, more people need to be introduced to Sixes or Highlander or whatever. More. You know, maybe more money might be even then result. So that's just a theory. I can't confirm this. I haven't talked about this opinion with anyone else. It might be completely false. It's just a theory and an observation, just so you know. But whatever their reason was to poke Valve into improving the competitive scene, I don't think they knew what they were asking from Valve. Because if they were asking for a matchmaking system, that just seems like a bad idea from the start. Because you already have this sort of established competitive community with the leagues, you know, ESCA, TF2, later on RGL, and all these third-party websites that kind of lead nicely into that. You just have to know about them. So I think if Valve amplified that instead of fucking with the base game, that might have helped. You know, they could have promoted some of these websites. I know they're third-party websites. Maybe they could have created some of their own alternative Sixes or Highlander lobby website just to get you into competitive. I know they were not going to do it, but it would have worked better than fucking with the base game and screwing over many people at once. And also, the lands, you know, some people came from the US, from Australia at some point. I think I-49 and I-52 had US and Australian players competing in Europe. So for TF2, that's huge. And the prize pool was just like a couple thousand. So that's nothing. Most players lost a bunch of money going to that LAN. None of them actually gained money, as far as I know. I think Benny just, you know, Benny, the guy that won most LANs, he probably broke even every time he won a LAN. Maybe gained a bit of money, but yeah, can't say for sure. However, if Valve just funded a LAN with a prize pool of, let's say, 50,000 or 100,000, that may have helped. And by the way, 50,000, 100,000, of course, is nothing for Valve. Like, it's less than pocket money. It's more like a toenail. So if Valve just gave us their toenail, how much that might have made a difference. So nonetheless, when matchmaking was announced, there was like so much excitement from the competitive community, and I never understood it. Because you're making a game that has no competitive nature in its base game. Try and be more competitive. And then you're like, oh yes, that's matchmaking is coming. That's what I never understood. Because we need the game at its core to be good and nice. You know, if I had started playing TF2 after 2016, I would not have played so many community servers and Valve servers that would then lead me, myself, to TF2 lobby or people that knew about competitive, you know? So that was, it felt quite organic the way I slid into the competitive scene. And by this update, they basically try and shove it down your throat, like, look how competitive TF2 can be. and it can be very competitive, but you're not supposed to bring this up on players who are just enjoying the game casually. And that's my main takeaway from Zesty's video, that I see some people don't understand that whatever we would have asked from Valve when it comes to improving the competitive scene, whatever additions they would have made to the game, it would have sucked. Somewhere the casual scene would have suffered, the pub system. Because if you need a segue into competitive, that means that the base game will suffer from it. Because the base game is not even slightly competitive. And that's my, I see a lot of people don't recognize this. And also, I think competitive people can't really grasp this. And that's also part of the reason why I'm making this, because it sort of clicked when I was watching the video. Yeah, like, okay, I get it. It makes sense. And this is where I actually really feel sorry for the whole competitive environment. Because, like I explained earlier, some of these LANs were so good. They brought people together from all over the world. They had, for TF2 standards, a good amount of viewers, a good amount of live audience. And to then hear from Valve like, hey, we're trying to do something to improve your little competitive bubble. Of course, you're gonna be excited. But I think the reaction was a bit more emotional rather than rational. Because if you think emotionally, it's like, oh my god, yes, our efforts have not been for nothing. We have tried to make this game competitive, and finally Valve has recognized. I think they let themselves go. I think after I-49 and probably I-52, they were so excited to have more recognition on competitive from Valve, and then possibly, in their minds, possibly from newer players, that they couldn't help but be excited about matchmaking. You know, that's why I feel sorry for them, because they really hoped that it was gonna work. They really hoped. And you know, it's easier for me to say now, like, oh, it was an emotional reaction and not rational. Back in the day, I may have also reacted like this. You know, it's easy for me to now go back and reflect on that, but I think I would have also just been excited. You know, I was playing competitive. Hey, competitive is being improved upon. I just wasn't excited about matchmaking, but that was me. You know, maybe it was just me, but it turned out it wasn't just me. So what happened after all this, when the update came out? I of course tried it. I tried matchmaking, I tried casual, and it was all crap, as we all know, and we saw it again in Zesty's video. So what was left for me was this new website that was created once again by the competitive community called PugChamp. And that was a very popular pugging website. You know, it's just a high-level lobby with good players, you know, players that you recognize, players that know each other from higher divisions. And I played a lot of that. I played 2016 and 2017 existed mostly of just me pugging all the time, or as much as possible at least, and no casual at all. The only community servers I played on were jump servers and surf servers. Not WarioWare, not Mario Kart, or anything goofy, because they were just not popular anymore. At some point I got in the first division, and in my last season we got second place, so first division is not the highest, which in Prem, or Premier is what it's short for, is of course the highest. So we were second place of the second highest div. So that's pretty high, but I also went slightly insane, so I quit the whole thing and basically didn't play TF2 again. I was still lurking around on YouTube videos and forums, but yeah, generally I just abandoned it. Then I heard the bot crisis was sort of over, And I was curious, like, okay, how does the game look now? And I tried it, and yeah, it's much better than with bots, of course. But it's still nowhere near the same experience as I had back in the day. And how I like to play games, you know, I don't play games very well. I'm not really a gamer anymore. I abandoned that whole stuff years ago. But if I like to play a game, I like to play it casually. After dinner, after you've worked, just when you've got some time for yourself and have something nearby that can entertain you. And that's what good old TF2 did. And this casual system doesn't do that because it's just boring most of the time, waiting to get into a server or waiting for the game to even start, because sometimes that also takes forever. And then if a game starts, I get horribly unbalanced teams. And yeah, I'm explaining stuff that Zesty explained. I'm not gonna go over it again. So you might be wondering why I'm making this video so long after I quit the game. And that's simply because I really like quick play, and I would love to see it return, because I thought that was worth playing in my free time, and casual doesn't really feel like that. It just takes up too much time, it's boring, and the system, well, you know, Zesty explained this. And also because, you know, Zesty was also very critical of Valve, and rightfully so. I think Valve makes way too much profits over this terrible mess that they've created, and all these updates that they're pumping out that are sort of you know, I feel like they're sort of numbing their audience, especially new players. It's like, ooh, new hats, hey, cool. Oh, a new map that you can only play during summer or during winter. It's just so cheap for such a big company to milk this game so hard and then give it so little in return. It's just it's scummy. I hate it. The last thing I want to talk about is the weapon changes and bans in sixes, and I guess changes in the game in general. And I will say it's a bit too long ago for me to remember exactly when things got banned in sixes and why. Like, for example, I don't remember when the Caber nerf exactly happened, and I also don't remember if it was the competitive community that demanded this, or if it was just the competitive community. Like, if the Caber got changed, was it just because of the competitive community, or were there also casual players or community server people out there complaining about it? That's something I don't know. You know, maybe Zesty knows, maybe some other blokes know. I will say I haven't done the research for this video, because everything I've told you so far has been from memory. I didn't go into old forums, I didn't watch any old videos. The only video I saw was from Zesty, the 4-hour one. So even though I play competitive, I can't tell you too much about it. The only thing I remember is that there are some threads where it was pretty evident that even within the competitive community there were some really mixed opinions about, for example, the crossbow. I believe when Jungle Inferno came out, there was a player called Olga who was running Pyro in sixes, and I know how it feels to play against him. It was quite annoying, but it really caused an uproar when he was playing Pyro in sixes. And I don't even know I don't remember how effective it was, but he was at least trying to break the meta. And I always like when people try to break the meta. Like, for example, you have Anthony, this North American soldier, who uses the Berger's Bazooka in sixes, and he seems to be doing decent. Like, at least his videos are really nice. And I don't know if the competitive community has this attitude of, if you break the meta, we will ban your weapon, or we will nerf your weapon. I'm not 100% sure on that, especially because I haven't played competitive in 5 years. I've been sort of lurking in the threads to see what goes on, but I don't know if recently weapons have been nerfed or banned, and I don't know if the players are satisfied with their current whitelist. So I can't give you a full satisfying answer on that. So I'm a bit neutral on that standpoint. I'm not like, I fully agree with Zesty, but I'm also not like, oh, he's wrong, you know, it's like this. I'm just not too well informed on it, even though I've played competitive. Now, I'm gonna wrap up the video here, because I think I've said enough. If you have any questions, please just put them down in the comments, and maybe I'll make a new video, or I'll just respond to them. We'll see about that. Anyway, thanks again, Zesty, for that great 4-hour long video. I hope we will see Quick Play return one day. And I just want to remind you that even though it was a bad idea from competitive players to ask Valve for competitive support, I know where they're coming from. I know what it felt like watching those games. I felt the hype, I felt the excitement, and I sort of can't help for them that they wanted their little community to grow. And heading for Valve, they just didn't realize what they wanted. They didn't realize what they would unleash once Valve really decided to do this. And I think it's a real shame. And I feel sorry for everyone that's, you know, felt bad after the whole Meet Your Match thing, myself included. So I hope this just gives a bit more perspective for non-competitive people. So, peace out.